Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel based on Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgy kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. What you do for us is absolutely amazing. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description, as well as a link to our good friends at Critical Failures, where we're part of a live stream game every Wednesday night. Definitely check us out. With all that out of the way, let's jump to this week's video. We're going to talk about the Aetherborn. The Aetherborn come from Planeshift. This is a Magic the Gathering thing that they put out. Now, Magic the Gathering is owned by Wizards of the Coast, and a lot of the things from Dungeons and Dragons are in Planeshift and Magic the Gathering in that world. That's where Ravnica comes from. That's where some of the stuff from Strixhaven comes from. And there's a lot of crossover going back and forth. So these were a couple of things that they were just released. It is officially produced by Wizards of the Coast in regards to both IPs. So I felt it was reasonable to cover them both. So I'm going to go through this, and this will actually finish out all the races for us. So it's important to note that Magic the Gathering has its own lore behind it. And there's a lot of very interesting things about it. There's a lot of cool things that exist. I really love Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. It's one of my favorite books. I think a lot of cool stuff exists in there. And I love the different guilds and the political intrigue that it kind of sows, which is something I'm very, very fond of as a person who's a role player first. That out of the way, the Aetherborn are a very unique species. What they are is a combination of a magical process that they're kind of the byproduct of. There's this something that's kind of spontaneously creates them. It's called the Aether refinement process, and Aether is kind of like magic as an essence. So a lot of times when these things are brought into existence, it's deliberate. They don't have long lifespans. They're created purposefully, so it's or by accident. Kind of those are the only two ways. They are fully grown when they're created. They can live anywhere between 4 weeks and 4 years. They do not have a long lifespan. They are very intelligent. Right from the jump street, they just have this like natural connection to the natural world that they're in. So they just have general knowledge that exists there. They all tend to worship gods of magic as they are part of that. And they kind of look like the Protoss from StarCraft if you've ever played. Like they definitely share a lot of that resemblance. They are super unique in the fact that they know exactly how long their life is as soon as they're created. They know they will live X amount of days, X amount of years, whatever it is, from Jump Street. So that thought process is really unique to them, because imagine if you knew exactly how long you had to live from the moment you became sentient. How you deal with that and face the world around you, for us, is different. But for them, they see it as, I have this much time, I need to do all these things now. And it's encouraging to them to use that limited life that they have to do whatever it is that's inherent in their creation or in their purpose or whatever it is that they were kind of drawn into life. There is a couple of things in their lore that does state that someone taught them how to drain life from other entities in order to prolong their own life. So they tend to be very similar to vampires. It's something that you would need to incorporate depending on how far back you want to go with your lore. It is very unique to them that they learn this ability, and they know that if they stop draining life, that they will wither away and die once that time has exceeded what their normal lives are. If you like the Vedalken, they are they kind of work very in tandem with the Vedalken a lot, because the Vedalken kind of do a lot of magical experimentation. So whenever an Aetherborn is created, Vedalken are usually pretty close in tow and studying them and trying to understand them. But there's no real love lost between them. It's just they kind of exist, and the Vedalken just try to study them. They are really out there as far as a concept. The Aetherborn have a unique ability score increase. They have a charisma score increase of 2, and 2 other ability scores of your choice are increased by 1, which is super unique, which is why I would kind of understand them not necessarily being allowed in most games, but definitely talk to your DM before trying to play this kind of character or building a character. The only other character or species that ever had +2/+2 would be the original dwarves, if you picked the certain subspecies, which I can't remember exactly, but if you did it right, you got +2/+2. Considering how the Aetherborn are created, I think this makes a lot of sense. Charisma being that kind of inner drive, that kind of inner like passion, and that force of will really drives them to do things, and I think that makes a lot of sense for them. And being magically created just almost as like an instant, and being full like adults, I think could really grant you that other +1 to 2 different things, because you're created magically to be purposeful and to do something. So I think that kind of fits. It makes them a little strong maybe, but I think that works out really well. Again, they really don't live very long, and as soon as they come into being, they know that limit, and it's usually anywhere between 4 weeks and 4 years. I have seen a few things that might have made it a little bit shorter, like 3 years, but the text states that Aetherborn come into being as adults and live no more than a few years, so however you find that necessary. I like that idea. I like that idea that I'm destined to be here for a short amount of time, so this is something I must do. I think that's very, very enticing for a hero that's really purely driven. I feel like a god of magic might create someone for that purpose, and I think being that kind of hero is something I could really resonate with. As a rule, Aetherborn are driven by hedonism and self-interest, making them neutral at best and thoroughly evil at worst. Neutral Aetherborn might devote much of their time and wealth to parties, social activities, while evil Aetherborn are usually involved in the criminal underworld. I think this is not necessarily the greatest description of alignments for them. I think they can be good. I think it all depends on how you want to make them. I can't see a reason why you wouldn't. I get the attraction to hedonism and self-interest, especially if you're, again, created in that kind of a fashion. You know you have X amount of time and this stuff feels good. Yeah, I can see yourself donating a huge portion of my life just to doing that. Their size, they're about the same size as humans, between 5 and 6 feet tall. They are quite light, only about 100 pounds, and their weight diminishes as they age, as more of their substance returns to the aether sphere, and your size is medium. I think that's cool. You start turning towards the end, and you start like having clumps of yourself fall off, and you're just like air or like wisp of smoke. I think that's awesome thematically. Your walking speed is 30 feet. You do have dark vision for up to 60 feet, which is pretty cool. You do have this thing called Born of Aether, which gives you resistance to necrotic damage, which makes sense because you're technically not really alive. Like, you're created, but you're just like a magical compound. You're not rotting away. Your hold on reality is dissipating. So I can understand necrotic damage not really having the effect that it should. You also have something called menacing, which gives you proficiency in the intimidation skill, and you can read and write common and 2 other languages of your choice. Again, you are created from magic that just kind of exists in the world, and the weave is in everything. So random bits of knowledge just existing in part of the necessary creation for you, I think makes a lot of sense. The Aetherborn really just give you that extra ability score increases. The dark vision and the resistance to necrotic damage and proficiency intimidation are good, don't get me wrong. Dark vision is very, very useful. Obviously, people pick it up almost every single time they can. Resistance to a damage type is great. Depending on the campaign, how much undead you might face, necrotic damage would come up a lot, considering how many monsters in the monster manual are undead. That's a pretty common thing you might be really good at being and able to endure, or pretty common for you to deal with. And proficiency in intimidation, based again on the kind of campaign that you're running. Intimidation really works better in heavy role-playing campaigns because your faces can then get that kind of opportunity for it. But outside of that, it's really not something super dynamic, super like out of the box strong. I think it's kind of middle of the road. I more so really enjoy the lore behind them. And when I enjoy the lore, I find it a lot easier for me to want to play that kind of a character. I like that that timestamp on my lifespan, because it kind of puts everything in perspective in a way that's very, very unique, that might encourage me to want to keep playing this character and have them have this great opportunity for their best life in such a short amount of time. But again, this is something that's not necessarily totally official, but you definitely need to talk to your DM before even considering some of these subclasses, species. With all that said and done, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you've ever played an Aetherborn or played any of the plane shift stuff, definitely let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear more about it. It's definitely something that's very, very rare in D&D to kind of encounter, and I think they look really cool. So definitely let me know about your experiences and whether or not your DM was like for it or against it, or you had this great idea and it just didn't play through. Definitely give us a like and subscribe if you made it this far into the video. Definitely check us out on Wednesday nights with our good friends over at Critical Failures for a live stream game. And if you like what you saw here, consider supporting the channel at our Patreon. The link is in the description, as well as a link to Critical Failures. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.